Hello and welcome to another episode of the Paragliding Debrief, the podcast that takes you deep into the heart of the paragliding world. This week's podcast is somewhat of a special one, as we'll be talking to Flight Lieutenant Benjamin Ireland, who is a junior engineering officer for the Royal Air Force aerobatic team that we more commonly know as the Red Arrows. We're going to be using this unique opportunity to talk to Ben about what life is like being a member of one of the most prestigious aerobatic display teams in the world. We're going to find out a little bit about him as a person, what he does in terms of his paragliding, and we're also going to get some interesting stories and information all about the Red Arrows. So sit back, relax, and join us in this special edition podcast as we talk all things Red Arrows. Okay, let's get cracking. I've been super excited about this special edition podcast. I'm sure everybody listening to this will have heard, will know, or will have seen the Red Arrows in action. One of the world's most famous aerobatic display teams, an absolute national treasure for UK citizens, and something that has been entertaining people through generations and generations and generations, not just in the UK, but around the world. We're lucky enough through paragliding to have the contact of Flight Lieutenant Benjamin Ireland. He's a pilot that I've met on the hill, that I've been on quite a few trips with around the world. A very talented paraglider pilot, up and coming paraglider pilot. And it'll be really, really interesting to get the lowdown, to really get a gist for what life is like inside the camp, as it were, inside the Red Arrows. You know, we all know who they are. The iconic image of the Hawk aircraft at displays, doing that really, really close together. Amazing kind of maneuvers and tricks that they do. To actually get a word from inside the camp, to find out what it's like being a team member, how it all works, and especially at the current times that we're in. At the moment, as I'm recording this, we're sort of in the midst of the COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic. I myself, running my school, have been affected greatly by it. I'm sure all of you listening have been affected greatly by it. And there's not many organisations that the COVID-19 issue hasn't affected. The Red Arrows, again, has certainly not escaped it any more than any of the rest of us. It'll be interesting to see how it's affected their season with all the social distancing stuff. A lot of the air shows have been cancelled. You know, most sporting events in general have been cancelled. So we'll have a word with Ben and see how the Red Arrows team have been coping with that, what their plans are, what they've been doing. Are they still flying? You know, are the aircraft just in the hangar collecting dust, or have they been out and about doing bits and bobs, and basically how they keep going? As I said before, I'm sure that all of you listening to this have had some kind of experience with the Red Arrows before, whether it's watching them live at an air show or seeing them on the TV. So just before we get chatting to Flight Lieutenant Benjamin Ireland, I'm going to give you a little warm-up. I've got a few facts and figures about the Red Arrows for you, just to get you in the mood. Maybe some of the statistics or the figures you know already, or maybe you don't. So, the Red Arrows, officially known as the Royal Air Force Aerobatic Team, is the aerobatics display team of the Royal Air Force based at RAF Scampton. The team was formed in late 1964, so they've been going quite some time. And they were formed as an all-RAF team, replacing a number of unofficial teams that had been sponsored by the RAF Command. So there were a lot of there were a few teams that were doing air displays, but there wasn't actually an official Royal Air Force aerobatic display team until the Red Arrows were formed in 1964. The Red Arrows' first UK public display was at the Biggin Hill International Airfair in 1965. I think personally the most prestigious position you can hold in the Red Arrows is that of Red 1. Red 1 is the team leader. It's the hawk at the front of the formation, and I think that's the most prestigious position you can hold in the Red Arrows team. Interestingly, the Red 1, the team leader who led the Red Arrows for the most number of years, was the legendary Ray Hanna. Ray flew as Red 6 in 1965. So interestingly, in the first year that the Red Arrows did their first UK air display, Ray Hanna became the Red 1, the team leader, who held that position for the most number of years. He held that Red 1 position from 1966 to 1969. He then, post-RAF, went on to become a world-famous civilian air display pilot, and perhaps he's probably best known for his solo Spitfire finale at the Biggin International Airfair. In 1968, which was the RAF's 50th anniversary, every single display, there were 98 in total. That's a lot of air displays in one year's flying, or one season even. In that year, every single one of those 98 displays was flown with a full complement of 9 aircraft. Why are the Red Arrows called the Red Arrows? In the 1960s, the RAF training aircraft were predominantly painted red. Part of this title also was in recognition of the Black Arrows, a very popular aerobatic team in the late 50s and early 60s. So the two kind of merged together, and the title of the Red Arrows was born and has been with the team ever since. Most of you, I'm sure, as we've already mentioned, know that the Red Arrows use 9 aircraft in their displays. We have Red 1 all the way to Red 9, but did you know there's actually a Red 10 as well? Current Red 10, the Red Arrows supervisor and airshow commentator, is Squadron Leader Alan Collins. So there are 9 Red Arrows in the air, and there's also a Red 10 who is the supervisor, team supervisor, and the commentator at the airshows. The Red Arrows are open to male and female pilots, and in 2010, Flight Lieutenant Kirsty Moore became the first female Red Arrows pilot. In most years, most seasons, 3 of the pilots in the Red Arrows are changed. So there's often 3 first-year pilots, 3 second-year pilots, and 3 final-year pilots that make up the 9 pilots of the Red Arrows. Although these numbers are not set in stone, and the numbers can change for various reasons. Once they've completed their 3-year course of duty for the Red Arrows, these pilots usually go back to the front line, back to their frontline duty in the mainstream career as fast jet pilots. One thing I love about the Red Arrows is they're not just there to do displays to entertain the public, but they also do a lot of charity work. And the Red Arrows help more than 500 UK charities every year. The last little fun fact for you before we get cracking with the main part of the interview is, with the exception of their arrival manoeuvre, the Red Arrows do not fly directly over the crowd, which is kind of commonplace and expected these days. There are 3 types of displays that the Reds can perform, obviously depending on what type of weather they have. I mean, in the UK, we get all sorts of weather. So depending on what weather we have, there are 3 types of display that the Red Arrows can utilise. They can do their full display on really good weather days with a high cloud base or no cloud at all. They can do their rolling display, and they can do their flat display if there's a low cloud base or some issues with the weather. The Red Arrows are nicknamed the Reds, and their supporting engineering team is known as the Blues, which seamlessly brings me on to the next part, which is to play you the recording that we did with Ben a couple of days ago over Skype. Okay, I'm super excited to have on the other end of the line Benjamin Island. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Lee.
How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm very well. We're talking to each other from the opposite sides of the planet. We were in the same room less than a month and a half ago in Colombia.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
And a lot has changed since then and now.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much from the day we set foot back in the UK, I guess.
Yeah, completely. Ben, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We are stuck in the verbal hangar, as it were, because of the COVID-19, and a lot of this podcast has been talking about different people's situations, being stuck in an unusual situation. I mean, I'm stuck in Perth at the moment, haven't been able to get home for a couple of months, and doesn't look like I will be for another couple of months. And one thing we've been doing a lot is, or I've been talking about a lot, is certain people's situations and looking at some of the interesting jobs and careers that paraglider pilots have outside of their paragliding world. And you, I believe, Mr. Island, have quite an interesting job yourself.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
What is it you do?
So I am the junior engineering officer on the Royal Air Force aerobatics team known as the Red Arrows. So that's
very exciting.
Yeah, so that's I'm kind of lead the daily engineering effort that keeps the Red Arrows in the sky. And as part of my job, I fly in the rear seat of Red 1 whenever we head anywhere around the world.
So you actually get whoa! You actually get to sit in the back of the Hawk and fly with them.
Yeah, that's it. So whenever we take our aerobatic team around the world in our Hawk jets, we always take an engineering team with us. And the best way to do that is to occupy the empty rear seat in all of the aircraft wherever we go. So we sit there as a passenger, and wherever we land in the world, we can, deploy a up to 10, 11 man engineering team wherever we land.
Brilliant. And you sit in the back, you're with Red One. That's the leader. That's the guy in charge of the formation.
Yep. So I share an aircraft with Squadron Leader Martin Pert, who is Red One. I'm the team leader. Yeah. So he's the lead pilot of the team, and I'm the lead engineer of the team, essentially.
Oh, amazing. I mean, this has literally been every childhood dream. I'm sure. I mean, for many of the paraglider pilots like myself, if we're a paraglider pilot, by nature, we're super interested in aviation and flying. And it must be for so many of the people listening in now, an absolute childhood dream to be part of. I mean, it's a world famous organization. One of my earliest defining memories as a kid was being at an air show with my dad and watching the Red Arrows. Was it
awesome?
Was it a childhood dream for you as well? I mean, are you the same as the rest of us?
Yeah, I guess so. So I always had the childhood dream to be in the Air Force. So I always knew that I wanted to be in the Air Force. I didn't really know from a young age what I wanted to do in the Air Force. Did I want to be a pilot? Did I want to be an engineer? Did I want to be a chef? Didn't have any kind of clue. But as I got a little bit older, became a little bit more interested in engineering, maths, science, that kind of thing. And kind of led me down the path to aspire to be an engineer in the Air Force. And once I kind of set my sights on that, I then found out that there was, various engineering positions available on the Red Arrows, and they were kind of the thing that sparked my interest in the Air Force in the first place. When I was about 13, Sunderland Air Show.
Right.
I remember standing on the seafront, looking up at the Red Arrows, and the air show organisers were playing Chariots of Fire by Vangelis over the PA system. I remember looking up at the Red Arrows and thinking, this is epic. And that kind of stuck with me. So when I eventually decided I wanted to join the Air Force as an engineer, I reinvigorated my love for the Red Arrows, or that memory, and then kind of tried to guide my career to this point, I guess. And it's been my number one aim in the Air Force in the 10 years now that I've been in, to get to where I am now, to this position. And I've sort of every action that I've taken in terms of, qualifications, posting choices has all been to try and get me here. So it's kind of been I would say not completely a lifelong ambition, but certainly an ambition over the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing story in itself. Because I imagine the Red Arrows isn't, it doesn't pop up in your local job weekly paper. The Red Arrow, it's an elite team of people, both from the mechanics to, the whole team, from the pilots, everyone, I would imagine. How do you get to be in a position where you actually make it onto the team, as it were?
Well, I guess there's quite a few prerequisites. So for the pilots, for a start, they have to have at least 1,500 hours of flying experience. They have to have an above average rating in the air, assessed as a good pilot, and they have to have served operationally. For me, as the junior engineering officer, or Django as we call it, there isn't kind of a specific requirement other than you have to have previous operational fast jet engineering experience, which I have from my time on the Tornado GR4, number 9 squadron. So I kind of had that. I was doing a fleet management job for the Typhoon fighter jet, so I was kind of responsible for making sure that all the different squadrons around the world and around the UK had the right aircraft with the right capability. I've made it sound really exciting there. It's a lot of spreadsheet management, and we have the guys in charge of our jobs in the Air Force. He's called our desk. So he sent an email around saying the Red Arrows are looking for a new junior engineering officer. You have to be experienced in fast jet flying or fast jet engineering, and you have to have these qualities is what they're looking for. So they're looking for good communicators. They're looking for someone who can do public relations. They're looking for someone who's interested in promoting science, technology, engineering, and maths, or STEM.
So of course, it's not just being a good mechanic, is it? I mean, you're literally an ambassador. You're an ambassador for the country, the Royal Air Force. There's a lot more to it than just a hands-on day-to-day job.
And I think that the whole team is at least 50% ambassador and 50% delivery of engineering or flying. So, I saw this email came around, and I'd always wanted to do it. And I thought, right, this is it now. This is my time. So I chucked in my CV and my sort of letter to say, this is why I think I'll be good enough. And then I was really excited to hear that I've been called forward for I would say an interview, but it was kind of a bit more than an interview. It was a selection process for 2 days, along with 5 other engineers.
Yeah.
When I saw the list of the 5 other engineers, my heart sank a little bit, because there's 2 or 3 of my really good friends and colleagues on there that I knew were really, really good guys.
Yeah.
So I thought, I've really got some stiff competition here, and it's perfectly possible that they could beat me to this. But so yeah, we went for the selection process, various interviews, engineering tests, scenario-based kind of assessment, and actually an evening social as well, where we went out into Lincoln for a few beers with a huge proportion of the team, just to see how we get on with each other.
Now, weirdly, that's the only job interview I've ever heard of where you can actually go and have a beer during your job interview. It's quite a cool job interview.
Yeah, and I guess it's really important for us to make sure that it's not a popularity contest, but it's really important to make sure that we can get on with the people in the team. We spend so much time away from home, living in each other's pockets, that you really need to make sure we've got the right character. And that isn't making sure that everyone is the same character. I mean, actually, it means that we try and have different characters in the team. Otherwise, it would just be a nightmare. So yeah, we did that. I came away from that feeling the most exhausted I'd ever felt. It was super intense. I hadn't even had a single interview in the 8-9 years that I've been in the Air Force. Since I joined. And I remember leaving, and the boss said, "Right, we'll get back to you next week sometime." And this was on a Friday. So I thought, "Oh, next week sometime. That'll be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest." Anyway, 4 o'clock the following Friday, I got called into my boss's office and given the news that I'd been given the job. So kind of probably one of the most exciting afternoons of my life. Brilliant.
I can quite imagine. As I said before, I mean, it is a boyhood dream literally coming true, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And it took me a little while to sink in, and I couldn't stop thinking about all the stuff that I was going to get to do on the drive home. So I was driving back from, I was in Lincolnshire at the time, driving back to Yorkshire. I actually missed 3 motorway exits, daydreaming on the way home because I was that excited. I sort of looked up and thought, why am I in Doncaster? I've gone all the way down the M18 here. I don't know where I'm. So yeah, it was hugely exciting, and it's nice to talk about it now, actually, because it brings back how I felt back then. Yeah,
for sure. It's an amazing story in itself. And you're also, I mean, you're a paraglider pilot. Are there any other members of the team or the organisation that are paraglider pilots as well?
So funnily enough, we've had 2 of the young engineers have just joined the team who have both just passed their CP. So or just before the COVID nightmare set in, they just passed their CP. Trained by the Joint Services School down in Crickall. They've just been. We run a system in the Air Force through the RAF Paragliding Association, where we have a bunch of ENA wings that we can loan out to guys who've just qualified, so that they can spend a year getting used to the sport, deciding what sort of kit they might like. So they've just received their kit just before we sort of ceased flying in the UK. So yeah, they're ready and raring to go, and obviously I've got hold of them and thrown my enthusiasm at them. So yeah, we're just waiting for the all clear to go out flying now, and I can't wait to take them out and show them the joy.
Awesome. And I mean, I know you quite well, and I know you're a super enthusiastic pilot. You've been really, really passionate. I mean, give us a little bit of the background of your paragliding. I know you've been super passionate the last couple of years, and your progression has been amazing to see. But give us a bit of your paragliding background.
So learned to paraglide I got my CP in November 2014. I actually started learning with the Air Force or the military paragliding school in Crickall. Did a week there, and it's not their fault, but the weather was dreadful, and I was super eager to get through my EP and CP. So I went to the June de Pila to do my EP, and then I went to Morocco to do my CP, which I finished off in South Wales. finished that in November 14, and then I guess the only way to really describe it is I've been obsessive about it since, and just really getting after it at every opportunity. So what, 5 years, I've probably done somewhere in the region of 230, 240 hours XC trips in there. So yeah, I guess I'm sort of emerging, finally getting my feet into the XC world and kind of becoming more of an autonomous pilot, which is good. It's kind of an exciting stage because I thought that the learning curve might flatten out, but it just doesn't seem to be.
Never, no. Isn't that the best thing about paragliding? Is it doesn't matter what level you're at, you're always learning something. There's always that the bar's always being raised. There's always something to chase for if you want it.
And that's kind of what's kept me. The thing that's really kept me into paragliding is just its constant progression. You know, even the progression that you see in the first 50 hours, it's so measurable. It's just super addictive. I guess it's the same with people who do things like bodybuilding, where they can see their progression almost in real time. It's super gratifying and just a great way of getting out into the outdoors, seeing the world. I've been to some really cool places in a short time with paragliding as the excuse, as it were. So yeah, been really good. Met some really cool people.
Well, I was about to say you have a really cool situation, a really advantageous situation as well, from the point of view of many paraglider pilots, where your wife, Rosie, she also flies. So the both of you fly, and you're both kind of at the same level. You started around the same time, if not together. Is that right?
Yeah, so we pretty much started exactly the same time. We both qualified for CP at the same time, and we've been progressing pretty much in line with each other ever since. And I think that's another thing that's been really good, is that we've always had each other to bounce ideas off and discuss situations, discuss weather conditions. And it helps to be obsessive when you wake up on a morning and say, right, I'm going to go paragliding. And your other half is like, yes, let's get after it. Let's go.
and it's fair to say she's as enthusiastic as you as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm sure you would probably mention it if I didn't. There is a small shred of competitiveness between the two of us.
I was going to say a word, but having seen you both, it's a healthy competition. There you go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Dummies only get spat out on a infrequent basis. So, but it's been super useful to. It really has made a big difference in our progression. So yeah, great situation to be in.
How, it must be, like you said, you travel the world with paragliding, but equally with the Red Arrows, you travel the world as well. And how easy is it to kind of juggle that work life, to being away, with being at home, with the family time, with being able to actually get out with flying? And how do you manage to balance that? You must be away a lot with the Red Arrows, because they don't only do displays in the UK, they also do displays in Europe and I guess around the world. Were you in America last year, was I reading?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question, and it's probably not one that I've even fully answered myself yet. I joined the team in May last year officially, but I didn't start my engineering role until probably October time. But yeah, I joined the team in May. They were nice enough to invite me on their tour to America with them. So we did an 11-week tour of the United States and Canada, which was just incredible. And I was given the opportunity to go with them. They said, you can do some of your engineering handover while you're out there. It'll be a great way to get to know the team. But what they really needed, they were short of people to help them run the public relations department out there, because it was such a massive undertaking. So that's what I was doing. I had the real privilege of taking a back seat from engineering, getting to know everyone, public relations bits. And when I got back in October and officially got into the chair for the engineering job, I sort of hit the ground running, which is really good. But yeah, so I was away for 11 weeks there, obviously no flying. And I would have been in Greece now. We would have been doing our winter training in Greece, or spring training in Greece.
Oh, is it Akateria? What's that called, the place that they... is it Akateria?
So we would go to Akateria in Cyprus, or we used to as a team.
Right.
We stopped going there because it's basically the hub for operations in the Middle East, and it's just too busy operations to have us flying around.
Okay.
So for the last few years, we've been going to a place called Tanagra in Greece, and the Hellenic Air Force there are absolutely brilliant. They've allowed the team to use one of their air bases to practice overhead. They've got some absolutely stunning coastal sites that they train on, and it's all based around simulating the different places that you would fly in the UK.
Okay.
So I would have been there from sort of, it's my dog barking. I think so. I would have been there from end of April to early June. So I was hoping to take my paragliding kit out there with me and do some flying at the weekends. There's a few sites not too far away from the airbase.
Right.
But due to this, that's kind of been turned off. So I haven't been flying. I haven't flown since Colombia actually. So
which was what? That was February.
Yeah, last day in February, I guess.
Wow.
So yeah, it's difficult to try and fit your paragliding in around flying, or around the around engineering and around the Red Arrows. But we always get the weekends off, especially during the winter and the spring. And during the summer, we do fly all different days of the week, but we usually try to get two days a week off, whether that be a Monday or a Tuesday, or kind of a Sunday and a Monday, depending on when we're displaying.
Yeah.
So it's not too different to balancing it from a normal Monday to Friday job. Just as many Mondays and Tuesdays are flyable as Saturdays and Sundays. So
yes,
it's not a huge concern there. But when the really interesting point that you make is, how do you balance family life? And I guess for Rosie and I, it's easy. We can see each other when we're flying.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of seeing our families, they've absolutely got into the mindset now that they'll see us when the weather is poor. So quite often on a Friday, my mum will ring me up and she'll say, because our parents live about an hour away from where we are now in the Yorkshire Dales, and they'll say, the weather looks a bit rubbish at the weekend. Are you around? So they've sort of become paragliding weather watchers as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we've had to do it. So yeah, paragliding. It sounds a bit sad, but paragliding takes preference over everything if the weather's good, which we're in.
I absolutely love it. I know, when you're that passionate, and I love it. And, the fact that you and Rosie are super passionate about it, it's wonderful. It's the way. And with you being away so much and with the pressures of your job, I guess you have to be. You have to, if you're home and you've got the opportunity, you have to go for it. And I love that kind of passion in the sport, in a pilot, because it's the way to progress.
And that's probably one of my big things that I've learned from paragliding that I pass on to any of the newer pilots, because I'm still a new pilot, really. I'm not hugely experienced, but things that I pass on to the really new guys, if you want to do well and you want to progress, you just have to get after it. It has to be. You can't, you could just do this in a kind of slow half manner where you just go soaring every couple of months, which is, if that's what you want to, and that's great, you're still taking part. But if you want to be up there with the guys that are going cross country every weekend, which I would like to be one day, you've got to be active all the time.
Absolutely. Currency and experience count for a massive amount in paragliding, and you've got to be out there doing it, as much and as often as possible. Currency and experience are everything. So, at the moment, you can't do that. We're stuck in the virtual hangar in terms of paragliding wise. And what's the season looking like professionally for you for the Red Arrows? I imagine all the air shows are cancelled this year, are they? Have they been up to anything? Is there any sign in the future that you might be up to anything? What's going to happen this year? Are you just, as a team, stuck in limbo? How does it work?
Yeah, I guess it's been a difficult and uncertain time for everybody, and I wouldn't for 1 minute say that our position is worse than all the people out there that are really struggling or making a contribution. But for us, it has been a difficult time. We're faced with a year where a lot of the planned air shows have already been cancelled, and there is a high likelihood lots more will be. We're not kind of where we would need to be with our training, just because of we've had to scale things back. Should be in Greece flying 3 times a day, 5 days a week. We've scaled that back a little bit. We've mainly been doing currency flying to keep the pilots current, so that's kind of fairly minimum.
And when they do that, are they doing displays, or are they just literally taking it up just to keep their hand in, or are they actually doing the tight formation display practice work?
Yeah, largely speaking, their currency flying involves them going up as a singleton, practicing all their emergency drills, practicing their landings, practicing various different types of approach. So nothing particularly Red Arrows in nature. They have been doing some flying, some formation flying, just in a basic fly past formation. Because
Yeah.
last week we did a fly past through London down the Thames for VE Day.
Yes, that's right.
Really good to do. It really gave us some purpose to train for and sort of get out there and spread some morale. There's some
And it really
fantastic.
does. I'm sure it gives the nation a lift, eh? There is something so iconic about the Red Arrows. It gives the nation a lift when you see them in that type formation flying by in whatever location it might be.
And that's it. And that's what hopefully we achieved our aim, which was we didn't really announce it. It wasn't public, it wasn't made aware to the public because of obvious reasons. We didn't want huge gatherings of people, and they just turned up on the Friday morning at 11 o'clock and flew through London with the red, white, and blue smoke on. And there's some fantastic imagery that's come from that. There's one particular picture of one single person stood in Trafalgar Square looking up with the Red Arrows flying over the top, which is just an amazing shot. And the BBC did an absolutely fantastic feature on it, which was the air-to-air and some of the ground footage of the guys flying through London set to the Land of Hope and Glory music. And it was just kind of a never despair, never surrender type piece. So that was brilliant. So we did that last week. And who knows, maybe we will do some more in the future. So yeah, we're kind of just, I wouldn't say stuck in limbo because we have to keep the aircraft going. We have to keep the pilots current. And we'll just have to hope that maybe something towards the end of the season will be suitable for us to fly. But I think we've just got to appreciate that it has to be number one. It has to be safe for everyone to come out first. All other concerns are secondary, really. And we're doing as much as we can to get involved with communities and give them that engagement that we wouldn't usually be able, that we would usually be able to give them during the season. So there's various initiatives where we're speaking to youth groups, we're speaking to Cubs and Scouts, we're speaking to schools and colleges, all that kind of thing to try and just keep engaging and keep promoting STEM, which is one of our main aims. So we're doing what we can, but we will be ready and here the moment it's appropriate to get out there and entertain the British public.
Oh, fantastic. And I know myself and anybody listening to this can't wait for that moment to happen. As I said, it's an iconic, it's something that just draws everyone together. The Red Arrows just give you that special feeling. I can't describe it. Anyone I talk to, my mother-in-law here, my mother-in-law's in the 70s, and we were chatting today when I said I was going to be talking to you. And she recounted a story of being at the Bournemouth Air Show, years and years, a long, long time ago. She can't remember what year it was. She can't remember anything that happened in that year. But she has a memory as clear as if it happened today of sitting on Bournemouth Beach with the Red Arrows going over the top and pulling up into some kind of close formation term. And she said she felt the whole ground, like the sand was rattling and vibrating below her. And it just gave her a tingle. And while she was recounting the story to me, she actually had goosebumps on her arm. That's the kind of effect that the Red Arrows can have on people. A really special moment in people's lives.
Yeah, and you know what, Lee? That's kind of why we all go to work and do this job on a Monday. I mean, it is a great job to do, but the effect that it has on the British public and the feedback that we get and what it means as an image, as an icon to people is really important to us as much as it's important to the British people, and it really does get us out of bed on a morning. And one thing we always bear in mind, that show in Bournemouth was probably many years ago now. We're all just caretakers of the red or blue suits. And the Red Arrows belongs to the UK. It belongs to everyone. It doesn't belong to the people that make it up. We just get to ride the wave for a few years. Help be part of the icon. It's great.
And then pass on the baton to the next generation.
Yeah. That's it. And I just love to hear all the stories of people, who saw the Red Arrows years and years ago. Like when they used to fly hearing the stories of when they used to fly the Fallen Gnat back in the bad old days, as we call it. You see people flying down the pit lane in Silverstone at kind of mere feet above the ground, lower than the stands. It's kind of those legends that we love to dine out on and keep ourselves going.
Yeah. And interesting, like a question that while I was chatting to my mother-in-law and she was recounting that story, my brother-in-law chipped in with a question, which was an interesting one, saying, after the Nat came the Hawk. And, the Hawk, since I've been a kid and watching them, the Nat went out just before I was old enough to remember them doing displays. So do the Hawk aircraft get replaced, or is it the same shell that just has new bits and bobs put in and out? Tell me a little bit from your engineering point of view about the actual aircraft themselves. Why do they use the Hawk? Are they easy to maintain? Is it the same aircraft that was going since I was that 4-year-old boy?
Okay, I'll answer that in chunks, I guess. So in the first question, why do we use the Hawk? So the Hawk is a advanced fast jet trainer. So it's designed originally, British design, built in Brough, designed to teach student pilots how to fly their first jet fighter. So they would come from a fast turboprop aircraft to the Hawk. And that means that it's super light. It weighs something around the region of about 5.5 tons without fuel, which for a fighter aircraft is light, very light. It's quick. It'll do it's certified up to Mach 1.2, so 1.2 times the speed of sound. We rarely fly it above the speed of sound. It's agile. It'll do +9, -3 G, which is kind of, you're approaching the limits of what the human body can deal with whilst flying.
Absolutely.
And it's simple to engineer, simple to fly for the pilots. In terms of the basic operation of the aircraft, it's simple. The close formation flying that they do is anything but the fact that the aircraft is simple to fly to start off with allows them to push it to that degree. And from my perspective as an engineer, it's just super easy to understand. I call it the textbook aircraft, because if you had a textbook explaining how an aircraft, a jet aircraft hydraulic system worked, you could almost take a picture of that system, open panels on a Hawk, and go and find the bits in the wiring diagram. So it's really easy for us to maintain, which means that we can consistently get 9 aircraft in the air to fly display. For those of you that kind of are uninitiated to what military fast jet flying is like, if you took a squadron of Tornadoes or even the brand new Typhoons and you tried to generate 9 aircraft 3 times a day, you'd have no chance unless you had a working fleet of about 25 aircraft, because there's so much more to maintain and go wrong on those aircraft. So you need to put a lot more engineering manpower into it. So we do a lot with not a lot with the Hawk.
Yeah.
So I guess that answers the why the Hawk.
Do you have any spare aircraft? So you've got the formation of 9. Do you have a cheeky spare one just in case, or have you got those 9 aircraft that you must keep in the air to make those displays?
So sat in our hangar right now, there are 14 Red Jets.
Right.
At any one time, we'll have one in what we call depth maintenance, which is kind of, I'd like to say it's kind of the same as taking your car for a servicing. It's a bit more in depth than that. It's like kind of taking your mountain bike in for a full service, where they fully take it apart, inspect it, change parts, put it back together. So that kind of leaves us with 13. We have one aircraft that's used for training purposes that hasn't got the smoke generation modification at the moment.
Right.
So that kind of leaves us with a working capital of 12, which is on some days more than enough to get 9 aircraft. Some days it's a challenge, but I think there'd be no point in doing it if it wasn't going to be a challenge. There are 14 Red Jets in the fleet. That's probably going to change over the next few years. There's plans to increase that number. Kind of brings us to the question of, are they the same aircraft as they were when back team started flying Hawk? Yes, in some cases, no in others. So the Hawk replaced the Nat in 1979. So that was that's now
40 years, because I was born in
ago.
1979, so my math is terrible, but I can answer that one. The 40 years. That
yes, 40 years ago. So we have a combination of aircraft that some of them are from that era. So all the Hawks were built around then, so they're all between 30 and 40 years old. We do have some aircraft on the team that have flown pretty much in the Red Arrows continuously since then. We have some that are newer. And when I say newer, the Air Force bought a huge amount of Hawk aircraft back in the sort of late 70s. Some of them have been doing other jobs around the Air Force. So whenever we need a new aircraft, we sometimes bring one from somewhere else in the Air Force. We paint it red. We put our smoke modification on it. We put our upgraded engine modification on it, and we turn it into a Red Arrow. So it's kind of mixed. Some of them are old.
Yeah.
I think off the top of my head, our oldest one was built in 1979.
Right.
So yeah, combination. But like you say, a lot of the aircraft now are a triggers broom situation. So for anyone who doesn't know what triggers broom is, it means that all the parts have been changed to the point where it's actually not the original airplane anymore. So we do change parts, and we do put new parts in. But in terms of technology, if you looked in the cockpit, largely speaking, it doesn't look any different to how it would have looked back in the late 70s, early 80s, which is brilliant for an engineer.
Yeah, easy, simple to work on, and a reliable workhorse. I mean, it's a beautiful aircraft. I love it. I've always been a fan of the Hawk. I absolutely love it. Will it continue in service with the Red Arrow? Is there any plan? Will there be anything else to replace it? Or for as far as we can see, it's going to be the Hawk for forevermore?
Mm-hmm. So we're set to continue at the minute till 2031, I think, or 2032 with the T1. There are no official plans in the pipeline to replace it. So we're good for another 11 years yet. So we'll see.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot out there that you could replace it with at the moment. So
if it's not broke, don't fix it. It does the job.
Absolutely. And as long as we can continue to engineer it effectively and safely, which is the real big point, we might see it go on beyond 2030, 2031. So we'll see.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, the main thing is I can't wait to see them back in the air again. With all this COVID stuff, all this lockdown situation we're in, I think I speak for everyone who's listening to this. We cannot wait to see you guys get back into full action and see these aircraft back in the air doing what they do, and you guys doing what you do best.
No, nor can we. And all I can say is that when the time comes, we will be ready. So as dramatic as that sounds, but we will be ready.
Brilliant. Yeah. Now, but just before we wrap this up, I want to thank you at this point for such a candid interview. I really, really appreciate it. I've learned a lot. I'm an aviation. I consider myself an aviation buff. I've been watching the Red Arrows for years, but it's been super informative.
No problem.
to get it from the insider, as it were. There's something we do with every guest that we have on the Debrief podcast. We have a list of 7 random questions, which I didn't give you any warning about, and I'm about to throw at you, which I hope you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, shoot.
Some quick. You already, interestingly enough, you already answered one of them a little bit earlier, so we'll come back to that in a second. But number 1 is: do you have a nickname?
Yes. So
I don't actually know this.
So my official title at work is Junior Engineering Officer, Jengo. But I get called Bengo. So it's just they replaced the J with a B, and I get called Bengo. So and it seems to have stuck. So that's pretty much what everyone calls me at work.
Bengo. Now, for anyone who has a child, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and Bengo was his name. I'm not sure if that reference will be. Oh, you do know it. Brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Bengo. Great. I'm going to remember that one for the next time I see you. Awesome. Now, do you have an embarrassing paragliding story?
Oh, yes, lots. I guess, let me pick one. I'll pick one that's worth mentioning because you can learn from it. So I'd passed my CP. I had about 3 or 4 hours worth of flying. And I decided that I would go flying in Chamonix in the summer. So I took a early morning so that it wasn't thermic or anything. The wind wasn't too bad. So in real terms, I was probably quite safe. I was just going to do a top to bottom, go land in the landing field. Took off, flying around, taking pictures, loving it, having a great time. Go to land in the landing field, completely overshoot my landing, land in a tree. Uninjured, but in front of all of my mates that were out there with us. Everyone had a good laugh about it. Luckily, I was fine, but that was I feel that I got the landing in the tree bit done quite early in my career, because they say that
You got out the
there
way.
are those that have and those that will. So I have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most embarrassing time. And I think the learning point from it is just don't try to run before you can walk. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, brilliant. Well done. Thank you for sharing that one. The question number 3 is favourite site flown?
Oh, I think so. I've flown in a few different places in the world that are
Mhm.
really cool, but I think Clough Head in the Lake District on a
Good. A homegrown site. I like that. Homegrown site. A UK site.
on a beautiful May day, probably I don't know how many, maybe a year or two ago now, and I flew from Clough Head all the way down. They call it the Milk Run. It's dead easy cross country, but over the top of Helvellyn, all the way
Yeah.
down that valley, and landing for ice cream down in Ambleside. So that's probably just the Lake District is a stunning place to fly. It's beautiful,
Agreed. Yeah.
and
Stunning.
knowing that you're in the UK is
Yeah.
great.
Adds a bit of the icing on the cake, doesn't it? When you do a cross country in your home country in the UK, adds that little bit of extra speciality to it. Question number 4: location you would love to go to, somewhere you haven't been yet, somewhere you've got your eye on potentially.
So actually, Rosie and I are still booked to go to Beer in India in October this year. Whether or not that'll happen, we don't know. But yeah, that's the next place that we've got our eyes set on. Going to immerse ourselves in sort of that culture and some stunning mountain flying, I think is next on the list. So
Awesome. Well, I've got fingers crossed. October might be far enough away to get out of this madness and get a bit of normality back. So fingers crossed for that one. It's a popular location. I know quite a few pilots who've been there. So an excellent choice.
Yeah, and if it doesn't come off, it'll be there the next year. But yeah, that's next on the radar.
Well done. Question number 5. 3 more to go. Who's your hero in paragliding?
Oh, in paragliding.
Or if not, who's just your hero in general?
I guess I probably don't have a specific one person who's a hero.
An aviation-related one.
I would say that in terms of my professional career, my heroes are kind of World War II era RAF people. So people like Frank Whittle, inventor of the jet engine. He had an idea there that so many people didn't believe in, but he continued to believe in, and just look where that invention's got us today. People like Geoffrey Wellham, who was a Spitfire pilot during Battle of Britain, 19 years old, against all the odds, fighting for his country. I think people like that are really inspiring. But then if you're looking at paragliding, I guess anyone who's really pushing the limits of the sport, redefining what it can mean. So, the obvious choice for me is someone like Gavin McClurg or Antoine Gerard, guys who are really going out and showing the world, well, this is actually the mad stuff that you can do with a paraglider in terms of adventure. You can carry an aeroplane in your backpack that can get you from one side of a mountain range to another. I think that's people who are doing that is incredible.
Great answer, actually, Ben. A really good answer there. Number 6, what's your favourite paragliding gadget?
I think mine is my InReach satellite tracker. And I think the reason it's my favourite is because it gives me such peace of mind to know that if I have an accident or I'm in the vicinity of someone else having an accident, I'm one button press away from alerting everybody to where I am and what state I'm in. And I think it's something that lots of people, if they're flying, some places it's fine, but here, certainly in the Yorkshire Dales, the phone signal and coverage is so poor. And if you go cross country and land out, there's lots of places where you can land out that are as remote as you could want anywhere in the world sometimes.
But do you know what? It's a really true point that you don't have to be in the middle of outer Mongolia. To have a survival story. You can get lost as easy in the Lake District, the Yorkshire Dales, the Mid Wales, for example.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's my number one tip is I've never had to use it. I've never had to even send a message on it in anger, but just knowing it's there is a real sort of comforter that I could, it's worth pushing into that area in the Dales where I know there's no phone signal or no easy way of getting a message out. Because if I land out, then I can ping Rosie a message on my InReach and the van will rescue me.
Brilliant. A lot of people have said they're camelbacks and bits and bobs, but actually that's probably the best one we've had so far. Now, the last but not least question. Sorry, my apologies. There are two more. Now, this one, we covered a little bit earlier on. Top tips for a new pilot. Now, you did mention this a little bit earlier in the interview, but your top tip for a new pilot, if you could have one.
Is, I think, I'd split it into two bits. I'd say if you want to progress, you need to just get after it, be enthusiastic, go out on the days that you think might not be flyable, be prepared to be disappointed and sit on a hill and not learn anything. Or learn lots and not do any flying. So just put everything into it. And it absolutely is a sport where it's not just a cliche. The more you put into it and the more time and effort you put into it, absolutely the more you get out of it. And I think it translates so directly. It's not an obscure link. It's a direct translation. And I think the second part of that is surround yourself with people who are better than you, who are know more than you, who are more experienced than you, and develop an instinct of what bits of information to take away from them. Develop an instinct for the people that are maybe not so reliable, and just go out to fly, but also go out to see your mates. It makes a huge difference. We're in a bit of a friendship group in the Dales here where, some of the pilots are really good guys that are flying 150, 200k flights on a regular basis. But we still go to, we go for a curry or a beer with them socially, and we just hoover up information from them all the time. So surround yourself with good people.
Brilliant. I would agree 100% with that. Again, beautifully put. You're doing very well. Considering these are random questions, you're doing very well with these, Ben. Well done, young man. The last but not least one is a little bit of fun for me. Acro or XC?
For me right now, XC.
Yeah, that's all you've been talking about in the interview, so I kind of knew that was coming.
Yeah, I'd love to do acro, and do you know what? The only thing stopping me is spending money on a completely separate rig to do acro with, and finding the time, finding the holiday time to go and do acro rather than XC. If I had the time, then I did my first SATs a couple of years ago now, and I can see that getting super addictive if I carried on. So XC for now, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Brilliant. A very sensible, well measured answer, Mr. Ben. Well done. Excellent, young man. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has actually been something quite special for me, because just before I started getting into paragliding, and I was in my previous life, my old job, and I was looking for a change, and I needed something to get me out of it, and I took a half day off work to go to the Western Supermare Air Show. And the Red Arrows were there, and they had a live kind of comms feed, and you could hear Red One going,
brilliant.
Go. And I remember just being in awe of watching them do their thing and walking off the beach. And it actually made me quite emotional that day. I was just listening to these guys living their dream, doing that, as a job. And I was quite unhappy in the life I was in. And it wasn't very long after that paragliding randomly came into my life, and I got the opportunity to change, to give up everything and go into paragliding. And it was actually that emotional day and how I felt walking off the beach, just having watched these 9 guys and all, having met you, all the guys who go with it, living their dream job, that really inspired me to kind of leave it. So it's almost talking to you now and actually being able to talk to someone that's associated with it has almost come full circle for me in this kind of huge life change that happened after that day watching them. So it's been a very special one for me today, Ben. I've really enjoyed hearing your thoughts, and I can't thank you enough, young man.
No problem at all. It's been really great to sit and talk paragliding for an hour. It's brilliant.
It's about all we can do at the moment while we're stuck in the virtual hangar, but hopefully soon the lockdown will end. I can't wait to see you back on a hill soon, and I can't wait to see you and your team back in the air professionally doing what you guys do best.
Cheers, Lee. Thank you very much.
Been an absolute pleasure, young man. I shall catch up with you soon.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks.
Cheers, Ben.
Bye.
That was really awesome to be able to talk to Ben there. A really informative chat. Can't thank him enough for coming on to this week's show. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. As always, I've been your host, Lee Tryhorn from the Free Flight Academy, and we'll be back with another episode of the Paragliding Debrief in the very near future. Until then, thanks ever so much for tuning in today. Take care and we'll be back very soon.